All right, let's get the microphone test out of the way before we get rolling here in about a minute. Let me know if you can hear me across the various chats, that being YouTube, X, and we got Twitch going as well. There are some private chats going for those that cannot access those websites from where their current location is. So please let me know if you guys can hear me over there as well. And we're going to get started in about a minute. All right, let's go ahead and get the music under control here before we get started. All right, let's roll right into this. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is February 14th, 2024. It's also Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And welcome to Market Madness Technical Analysis Wednesdays. So this is our Wednesday live stream. And we are going to follow up from what we had previously talked about on Monday's live stream and then in yesterday's pre-recorded video. We have seen Bitcoin. Let's go over to the support and resistance chart real quick. We have seen Bitcoin head right into the next area of interest to the upside here, that being these two weeklies after breaching the March of 2022 monthly swing high on a close open. We saw a nice back test of that area in yesterday's price action. That provided some pretty good opportunities in the lower term timeframes. We can see that the daily upper second standard deviation is right up against this weekly here at 50,800, and Bitcoin has tested the top side of the next weekly here at 51.8. This is the more important one on a close and a wick. As you can see, there is a swing high just above it. This is the September of 2021 weekly swing high. This was the first major top before the next major low, which was the retest of the breakout from the lows in 2021 that went on to make a new all-time high. The close for this was that 51,800. That swing high is coming in at just under $53,000. So this is the next big area. I had mentioned on Monday and in yesterday's video that, generally closing above this March 2022 bear market monthly swing high, very bullish. We're looking for the next area to get hit around 50,000 to the weeklies here. And I was giving it some room, mid to low $50,000 area. That is currently where Bitcoin is trading. And, the next big area for it to get through would be these closes to that swing high. So, hang on to that 50,800 to 51.8, 52K, which is where the current wick high is coming in, just over 52,000 at 52,111 on Coinbase spot price. The next big area for Bitcoin to breach before really there's not too much in terms of major longer term time frame support and resistance until we get basically to the all-time high closing or closes on the weekly and monthly and then the wicks on the dailies and stuff. But realistically, it's this line right here, and that's going to be the September of 2021 weekly swing high prior to going and making new all-time highs. So we did talk about this as a potential possibility, but something that we did want to keep in mind and still do need to keep in mind is this chart over here. And this is the monthly, swing high deviations that we've seen in every prior bear market cycle, dating back to the 2014 bear market closing swing high to the actual swing of that bear market closing swing high, and then move back to the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. Now, in this case, Bitcoin was already going into its expansion phase, much like what we have seen in this particular run up. Bitcoin did the same thing again in 2019. This was its first bear market closing lower high. It swings it, comes back down to the upper first, and then lift off. This was just prior to expansion of the Bollinger Bands. It was basically starting to get that expansion, but it wasn't aggressive expansion above the upper second standard deviation like what we're seeing now. And then back in 2016 when it swung the bear market lower high of 2014. In this case, this is the outlier, and we did talk about this. Every time Bitcoin has closed above the upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands on the monthly, it has kicked off aggressive expansion to the upside, which has always gone on to make new all-time highs in just about every asset and indice that you can chart with this. Now, in Bitcoin in particular, it does this just prior to and or after the halvings. Now, in this case, this is prior to the halving, which is fine. We did see the monthly swing high get swung. So that bear market swing high got swung in last month's candle, and Bitcoin got immediately picked up in this month's candle and is, well, swinging higher. You can see from the monthly, there's not too much more to go in terms of resistances outside of this wick high here coming in at where? $53,000, that area that I just pointed out on the weekly for the weekly swing high. Now, excuse me, this number is going to be a little different than what I'm showing you on the Coinbase spot because this is index. The next big area to go for is the closes on the monthly. So there is two big monthly closes up here at 58.8. And of course, we've got the 61.5 close open up here for the all-time high in a monthly close. After that, it's the wicks. Really, you pick out the wicks on the daily, 61.8 to that 65,000. Above there, there's 66,900, so basically 67,000 prior to getting to the $69,000 all-time high. So Bitcoin may very well try for this prior to the halving. The halving's estimated to be 420, which is hilarious. But until we see the close come in this month, just keep in mind that this is still a possibility. If it does, trade back below the high here at 48,222, that still preserves the opportunity for Bitcoin to hit that upper first. I still wouldn't rule it out, even if Bitcoin closes above the bear market lower high of 2022, for Bitcoin to at least come back and retest that upper first at some point, even if it's around the all-time highs or higher, and then get further continuation. Why? Because we're just now seeing expansion of the Bollinger Band volatility metric here, BBWP. So we have confirmed Bollinger Band expansion. We've got beautiful downside supports at the upper first. Bitcoin, when it does head that way, it has to close below the upper second. If it doesn't close below the upper second, and or at least wick through it down to the upper first, you're not really looking at the upper first as a possible target. At least not until we start seeing at minimum daily closes below the upper second. Then then it's possible. But if the monthly closes up there and Bitcoin's trading the dailies above the upper second, we're not really looking for too much more to the downside. In this case, that's coming in at 46,500. So Bitcoin getting a little bit of distance on that price action there. If it does start to trade below there on the daily, well, the possibilities for it coming down to wherever the upper first is at that particular point is valid. In this case, it's coming in at a nice weekly level right around 37,500. There's weeklies there between 37.7 and 36.2. We'll investigate that in just a moment on our support and resistance chart again. I just wanted to bring you back to this. I know a lot is being made of this. It's like, oh my God, look, it's done the thing. It's broken the bear market lower high, and this time's different. And we have talked about this. This time could be different. And it's really all hinges on the expansion of the Bollinger Bands and expansion of price volatility within those bands, and in this case, outside of the upper second standard deviation. And that also means that it can still come back down and test the upper first. I would expect it to, at some point, test that upper first. It will... If it does head up above this lower high and even run the all-time high, I would still expect it to do so at some point. As price volatility grows, and that means the ranges get very, very big on the daily for potential upside and downside. But this is very bullish. We've been talking about this being bullish for quite a long time at this point. The macro low is in after the major low being set down here at that 26,500 or so. It's on the monthly, it's 24.7, 24.9 area on the lows, but looks beautiful. And I do want to point out that there is, confirmation. It's soft confirmation at the moment on the monthly for BBWP and the moving average both pointing up. That's a wonderful thing. We do see that, and we've talked about this quite a bit as well. When Bitcoin enters the Stoke overbought zone and or oversold zones, once it gets in there, that's typically where we see the biggest moves. And in this case, I do think that at some point we are going to get this turned down in the context of a massive bull run on some of the longer term timeframes, at least longer term than the monthly, that being the 2-month, quarterly, and possibly more there. And we get a bullish reset on this. Now that would be, that would look like Bitcoin coming up to maybe the high, swinging it, making higher highs, and then coming back down in a big way, and then resetting on the macro scale, and then really running. I do think that we are in that phase. I think Bitcoin is ready for it. We can see that Bitcoin is now trading above the upper first on the 2-month. And this is important because this monthly close will bring with it the 2-month close. And then we get to look forward to the quarterly in March. So we've got 15 days until the close of this. Now, the upper first is at 48,671. So if Bitcoin does close above there, the upper second is completely viable. That's at 61,500. And of course, that would make the all-time high a viable target as well. And as long as Bitcoin is trading above here, even intra-month, intra 2-month close, then we are looking for that upper second area as being the next big upside target area. So somewhere in the 61.5 to the all-time high now possible. Of course, if Bitcoin does fall back below the upper first on the 2-month time frame at 48,700, that does not mean it's over. That does not mean that the upper first on the monthly or the basis on the 2-month is destined to get hit, but it does bring it back on the board as possible areas of interest to the downside. And in that case, before the 2-month close is likely what I would be looking for. But we are looking at a cool down still occurring on the 2-month time frame, 23 under a 30 at BBWP there, meaning this is lining up for, man, this could do, and I've talked about this for a long, long time because it is a real possibility. Bitcoin could do a very macro consolidation, being in just bigger ranges. It could even go and make a new all-time high and then come back down quite a lot, and then still in the context of the 2-month be freaking bullish for a mega run. And when I say a mega run, I mean a macro consolidation to a just pop off to the moon kind of run. Now, macro consolidations on the 2-month and quarterly time frame can take a very long time. We are seeing something different that occurred in this cycle versus the other cycles, and it really all started in 2021 in the bull market cycle being very different. Not, got a parabola up, but then double topped. We haven't seen that before in Bitcoin. We also haven't seen the lower second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands ever get hit in any capacity on Bitcoin, and it's because it is a maturing asset, and in which case volatility will come down over time. But what happens when volatility comes down over time is you get prolonged lengthening cycles. But we do have something different. We have a much bigger adoption pool of customers here because we have the ability for customers to buy an ETF wrapper of the underlying asset, which is going to suck up the underlying asset much faster than it can be produced on a daily basis in many cases. And that, of course, is going to be halved from 900 to 450. So this is probably going to be a big factor in what's coming up towards the halving, and a big factor in what we are seeing now in terms of this change, this structure change. And this is not unexpected. We've talked about this, and it's funny to see so many people, you know, so many people so surprised. And that also doesn't mean on the other side of things that things can't come down in a big way either. But I would not be expecting any kind of new lower lows anytime soon until we see something structurally change on at minimum a weekly. And let's go to the weekly real quick. The weekly upper second standard deviation got tagged. We talked about this earlier this week, and that Bitcoin can even get above it, probably somewhere around that 21 swing high on there, up there on the weekly, but at around $53,000. Right now it's kind of already looking like it wants to head that way. We've been talking about, above the wick high over here at 49, we're looking to 50,000, and then if it can stay there, we're looking mid to low 50s. We've already got the low 50s. We're looking into probably the mid 50s if 53 can get taken. And then I'd be looking mid to high 50s, somewhere around 58,000 by the monthly. Quarterly is another thing, because the quarterly is going to be a big one. We should actually go back to check this out, because the quarterly, well, not as important as the monthly there just yet, but the quarterly upper second standard deviations at, it's updating currently to around 59,500. So realistically, if Bitcoin makes it to the mid 50s, we're looking at, the strong half of the 50s to around 58, 59,000, possibly 60, and then up to the all-time high probably shortly thereafter if Bitcoin can make it. Make a concerted effort to push up that way. Let's go ahead and get rid of the crypto expansion chart so we can see a pretty clean view of the quarterly here. You can see that upper second standard deviation at 59,400. If Bitcoin, of course, can follow through on the 2-month chart that we just talked about, get a close above the upper first at around 48,669, nice, and then follow that up with a close in March above the upper first, which is a little bit lower than the upper first on the 2-month. So a little bit more room for volatility on the quarterly here, down to 43,300, 43,400 area. Upper second's coming in at that 59,400. Upper third is above the highs here, coming in at around $75,000. Now, when looking at the prior structure, if you wanted to get a good gauge for kind of what the potential is based on the prior structure, you should be using log-based fibs. If you're using linear-based fibs, you're going to get some confluences, but log-based fibs are going to give you much clearer, cleaner levels. All right, so what did we just bounce off on the quarterly? The 618. And that was after recovering above it. We see the basis is down here at the 382. This is log-based fibs. And what do we have? Well, above the one spot. So on a legit break, we're looking at the 1272 at 103,000, 1414 at 128, 130. We got the 1618 up here at 173 to the 1786 and 1888 up there. We're looking at deeper 200 or low $200,000 area, 223,000 to mid to upper $200,000 area at the 1888 at 260,000. What do I think is more realistic? Well, we are going to see expansion at some point on the quarterly. I don't know if the next run's going to take things that high, and I would venture to say, judging by some of the more mature players in the market with respect to liquidity providers now having to be involved on the ETF side of things, I could see the all-time high getting swung and then things come back down. Bitcoin may be running the all-time high and then coming back down, maybe even pushing up into the $100,000 range to mid to low $100,000 range, and then coming back down, and still overall not being done with that overall bull market cycle. I really could, see that occurring. And we've talked about this. We've talked about this prior to the bear market lows being put in. So for those of you that have been around for a while, we've talked about what many refer to as the super cycle. I refer to it as the lengthening cycle or the lengthening macro cycle. I mean, when you're looking at a quarterly, it is just a big up and to the right chart, right? When you're looking at any time frames higher than that, you start getting to the 6 month, it's up and to the right with volatility coming down, right? But in the context of the highs of the 6 month, which Bitcoin is trading above right now, and just for reference, anytime it has done that and closed the 6 month above there, which it's got 4 months and 17 days above the close, the all-time high is immediately ran thereafter, and then new all-time high comes shortly thereafter as well. Just like back here, we saw the July of 2020 candle above there, all-time high got ran and then higher. And we can see that Bitcoin is trading now currently above its 6 month closing, giving us the all-time high as a possibility in the context of volatility only just starting to re-expand, man. And Bollinger Bands just now getting populated on the chart. It's not going to be something that should be taken as a be-all, end-all, but realistically, Bitcoin has been in a macro consolidation, sideways and up consolidation, and I do think, I think you can read the room. Everybody's been, super cycle is now back in vogue, but this is something that we've been talking about in one way or another for quite some time. Watch the weekly. When the weekly starts getting expansion of Bollinger Bands like this and holding the upper first zone, and then we're seeing BBWP expansion start to follow through, we want to see that turn at the end of this weekly candle close on the momentum indicator here for BBWP, which is a 5 simple moving average down here. So BBWP over the moving average get a positive slope. Good to go. Let's go over and check a few other things here. So we're going to go over to the taker buy sell ratio here on CryptoQuant as well. We can see that, we've got, man, this got to extreme lows. It's funny because yesterday, when this traded back to around, the upper $48,000, mid $48,000 level, this thing was like tanking. And I've told you anything below an 8.8 and anything above like a 1.12 to 1.14 on the taker buy sell ratio, you're typically going to see the price start to stall in those areas. So this was getting around the 40 is 49.5 and upper $48,000 region, 48.5, and yesterday's price action. And this thing was like at a 0.4 something. And it's like, okay, they're hitting the bid so hard, this is going to reverse at some point here pretty shortly in the lower term timeframes. You watch that in conjunction with something like a 15-minute chart, for instance, coming in to test the March of 2022 all-time high, monthly swing high. It was not an all-time high. The March of 2022 monthly swing high here, as it came back in for this test, I was looking at the taker buy sell ratio, just reaching for the absolute earth, and it got, combine that with what I was seeing on structure on the double bottom down here is when it really started to tank, because they were really trying to push it towards that swing high and back towards the monthly at 47. So they were hitting the bid very aggressively, and it quickly, got the nice double bottom here and started to regain and specifically close above the $49,000 consolidation high, or the lower high of this move down. Once it started to regain that, it was over. It was going to go sideways. We saw this absolutely reverse and got to like a 1.6 or a 1.7 on the taker buy sell ratio without really moving either to the upside or downside. Then it started to normalize in between those two areas. So you could take the 1.08 as like a warning sign on the bid side, where the bulls are lifting the offer, and a 0.88, which often doesn't register too often down here, but you can see 0.89 and That's on a close, by the way. You'll see this adjust in real time throughout the day. It's sitting at a 0.104, so it's still pretty bullish in terms of its price action, in terms of bulls lifting the offer there. But if the bears start hitting the bid really hard and price isn't breaking the range lows, guess what? And or double bottoms and starts to reverse, you're probably looking at the end of that particular hitting the bid scenario, or hitting the bid you're looking at probably the end of that bid getting hit in that area for at least a little while. Got to reverse to go find liquidity. That is one reason why I have this up here. And then the next reason is going to be, well, let's go over to my dashboard. Which dashboards do I have here? No, I don't know if I have the right dashboards. Let's go here. Let's go to my dashboards. And we're going to go to this guy here. No. You know what we're going to do? Did I not save it as my dashboard? We're going to not do that. We're going to go to dashboards again. And we'll just have to go back through charts. And we're going to go to, I believe I'm looking for flow indicators. No, market indicators. Man, I think I might have lost my my bands, my crystal ball bands, because there is the crystal ball band. So because they've been pretty darn accurate, and they spelled it very weirdly. Darn it. I could have swore I saved it at some point. Now I'm only seeing exchange flows. No. Queries. I am not seeing. It might be because I am running my pleb account here for the stream. We'll come back to that. But the last time I looked, for those of you guys that do have Crypto Quant and have followed that link to the chart set that has the crystal ball bands, that the daily markup is getting into the 1272 area that I was just referencing on the fibs, which is at around 100 to 110,000. So it is starting to work its way up there, and that thing has been very accurate on the lows, almost perfect. And then there's always a deviation of the upper band. And the deviation, of course, because it's log scale, can be quite large. And in this case, we can look at open interest. You could see that is, and I've mentioned this a lot, you can play divergences on open interest. You can do all kinds of fun stuff, right? Let's look at the daily here on open interest. And you can see that, Bitcoin's getting up to, what was the high today? About 14.6 billion. And then we can reference, what that is in terms of historical price. We did see that, of course, over here at around 53,000. So there is enough open interest in the market to hit that area. The last time that it hit that area prior to that, though, Bitcoin was trading all the way down at 42,200. So just so happens that 42,200, if you're to, just draw like a trend line from here, and you look over here, this was the daily support area, and relative open interest in the last prior bull run. It's coming in, open interest was much lower on that spike than it was in the last bull run, where the spot markup is basically picking up the rest and pushing it towards the mid to low 50 area. Now, is it in some critical regions in terms of open interest? Yeah, I mean, not really, especially considering that we have ETFs in play here, and we're not going to see their OI on this, at least not yet, until they start tracking those metrics, which, it's going to be all flow data and holding data anyway. So it's not really going to be representative of what we would be looking for until options derivatives can be traded on the ETFs, which it's not available just yet. So we want to see massive increases in open interest. The reason why this is around some of the areas that it was at like 53, you got to remember there was a massive dump off in open interest back in 2021 that put in that daily Wyckoff reaccumulation, hit the spring, and then put in that high at 53, came down and tested that base, right? But it was on much lower open interest. So there was a bullish divergence in open interest that turned into a macro bearish divergence because we had open interest just under 20,000 or 20 billion here at 65. And we did not hit that level, even though there was a nice bullish divergence on this side of open interest that sent things up to the new all-time high at around 69. There was a big old bearish divergence on open interest on the other side of that. So higher highs and then lower highs in open interest in the macro scale that sent things back down. Open interest then bottoming around that 5.5 billion. Now working its way about 10 billion higher, 9 billion higher to 14.5. This is not overheated by any stretch of the imagination in terms of just pure open interest. Is the move a little extended right now? Yes, but that's what you want to see when things are uber bullish. And pullbacks from here are probably going to be big but short, if I had to guess, especially as volatility increases exponentially here. And who's leading the open interest charge? That should be CME. That's the professionals in this market. Very nice. They are leading Binance by about 480 million, which is not much to be fair. But CME has also got, traditional markets over here putting their work in with those ETFs as well. So very, very nice stuff. Let's go ahead and take a look at chat real quick here. And before I move on to the actual, for you guys, less important analysis, that being Dixie, gold, and traditional markets, although they should play some role in your analysis. Trade the chart, or chart what you're trading, and that's going to be the most important thing first. So if you're trading Bitcoin, you should be charting Bitcoin, and that is the most important chart. But I wanted to look over in the chat, see if anybody has any questions or comments. Hi, Bobby. I see a lot of people hanging out in chat, but not a lot of people chatting right now, unless you're chatting across the other chats. Yes, you are in the other chats. Come on over to YouTube if you are wanting to chat. It's just easier. And it's... Yeah, the plugins for X doesn't really work that great. I will see somebody post there and then it immediately disappears unless I go right to the actual live stream on X, which of course can be a little bit of a challenge when I'm also streaming myself. And then if you're on Twitch, the Twitch plugin is just straight up broken half the time. So if you are on Twitch, come on over to Landy's Crypto Corner on YouTube and you can chat there. So if you do want to jump in chat and give me a piece of your mind, whether that's tell me how wrong I am about everything, even though we've been hitting these moves nearly 100% of the time lately, which is not anything crazy. It's when you're playing support and resistance and volatility as it relates to trend, you're going to get nearly every move to a T on some of those longer term time frames. Shorter term time frames, you'll get a wick or two through. This is nothing special. It's actually simple, and the simplest analysis that incorporates trend, support and resistance, volatility, that of course creates momentum. Then you're going to be accurate. It's all about how you trade it at that point. That is, that would be taking advantage of that accuracy in the markets. So, yeah, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and keep them, yeah, try to keep them relevant to Bitcoin for right now. Yeah. And let me know in the YouTube chat. That's at Landy's Crypto Corner. It is linked in the profile there on Twitch, and it is linked on X. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to Dixie, and we'll get that one out of the way. This will be fairly quick. We'll follow up with a little bit more detail. Hold on. So I've been trading Sol based off of Bitcoin movements. It's following BTC every step of the way. Not one deviation. I mean, if you go down to the daily, there has been deviations, but in general, alts are going to run, at least in terms of their US dollar pairings. In general, the larger cap alts will run alongside Bitcoin. In some cases, they'll have bigger moves in terms of US dollars. When Bitcoin is having a little bit of a weaker up day, in some cases, they'll pull back. Sol has been, if you're talking about, I think you're talking about Sol, yeah. And Solana's been generally strong for quite a while, and in fact, it was giving away what the market desired in terms of alts in some cases, and even Bitcoin in some cases, a little early, at least a couple months ago. But it's been strong, and it's been defying the whole FTX situation. The bulk of their bag was Sol, and they were going to sell into it, and a lot of those deals were done OTC anyway, so it wasn't really going to hit the market in the way that many expected. But there were many that tried to take advantage of it, and it has been strong. And so I would not use other charts to trade, right? They can help lend some confluence, but I would not use them to plan out any longer term swing trades. Let's put it that way. But generally, you can get a good idea if there's confluence across multiple charts. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at Dixie. Dixie is now pushing through to our next upside target. Remember, I did say it's as long as it's above the upper first and basis, it was going to remain strong and still preserve its opportunity, especially trading above this 104.5, 104.55. That the next big area is going to be around 105, and it hit just shy of there, or did it hit it today? 104.97. So 104.97 is the high for today, and that's right up against this resistance here at 105.02. Above there, I would start to look at that 105.40 to 105.60 area, and then of course above there we're looking at 106. If it does happen to reject and lose the 104.55 to 104.50 region, its upper first is right there at the previous highs, now at 104.30. Below there, we're looking back to this consolidation low, this nice swing low that turned into a nice consolidation closing low, right around the basis band at 103.80. I think it would still be very strong above that area. If it does start to close that area, below that area, it could still have an opportunity, at least on longer term time frames, to set higher lows around the daily upper first. That's coming in the 103 to 103.30 area below there. And it starts to look a little weak on the daily, especially being around this larger consolidation around the areas below 103 in the upper 102 zone. And then, of course, if it dropped that, we're looking at the next consolidation, 102.50, 102.60 area, and then down to 102 even. But right now, looks pretty good to hang out, at least in this area for now, as long as it's trading and closing candles above, 104 to 104.25. I would look for continuation into the 105 area for that target to get hit. If it can close above there and or get above there in the lower term or medium term time frames, then I would expect 105.40 to 105.60 to get tagged all the way up to 106 and maybe more over time. We do see that Stoke is turning back up on any closes above 104.38, and it's currently trading pretty well above there. This could change throughout the day, but looks good still. That is the upper second standard deviation on the 2-day as well, which is closing today. Nice spike down to the upper first. So this does look like a little bit of a reversal to re-expansion to the upside. Now, is it critical on Stoke? Yeah, but the biggest moves happen in the overbought and oversold zones. So 104.67 is the pivot on the 2-day. This is looking like it wants to line up another go here. 3-day upper second. If it's going to reject, it's going to reject here or slightly higher. This, quite frankly, looks fine. It looks like it wants to try expansion to the upside here. 104.05 is the pivot. That's not coming in until Friday, so looks good. We'll talk about that on the Friday open, I guess. 4-day is the upper first, so this is your longer term time frame. Bull bands compressing down. So again, if it's going to reject, it's going to be here or in the 105.5 to 106 area up there, which is starting to creep into that upper second standard deviation, which is in the low 106s at 106.40. But it's upside angled on the 4-day on closes above 102.25. So, it's more bullish than bearish in terms of momentum. Same as the 5-day. So 4-day, 5-day, we're looking at 102.04. It is above the basis after a nice back test. This is a fresh open as of yesterday's candle. So the upper first is right there in that 105.5 area. So 105.45 specifically, splitting the difference between the support and resistance zone up there. And of course, the weekly is coming at the top side of that area with the pivot at 102.05. So, it's pressure up on the weekly. And the more macro, longer term time frames, looking at like the quarterly and stuff, it's probably, more bearish than bullish. But if the monthly takes out the highs at any point, we'll talk about this as we get closer to the end of the month. If the monthly takes out the highs at any point, it has the potential to turn the quarterly and 6-month back to the upside in terms of momentum and maybe go on a run. That would be a little bit out of character for what is signaled in terms of, inflation and the Fed and all that good stuff, but really doesn't matter too much until we see something big happen on some of those time frames. And we got that move down. Of course, Dixie moving up, gold is moving down, Bitcoin's moving up. Bitcoin is being pitched as the safer hedge against inflation, which inflation numbers came out a little hot. So ETF players in the game are pitching it that way. Larry Fink's out there talking that way. Everybody's talking like a Bitcoiner right now. And Bitcoin did break below the $2,000. And the big area that I talked about is in the cards now, 1980 to around 1965. If that area does not hold up, we are looking at expansion below the lows. Like I had said, below the lower second and break this low, we're looking at confirmed expansion down into the support zone at 1980 to 1965. If that doesn't hold up, we're looking to the next big support area, and it can fall anywhere in between. But in general, I'd be looking 1940 to 1928, 30 area. Below there, we're looking back down to the low 19s, maybe even upper 18s again, which pretty harsh for the Peter Schiffs of the world, right? They were supposed to go to 2,500. That's what Schiffy wanted. Doesn't look like let's see. 2,022 bucks. So sorry, I got distracted there for a second as some of you in the private chats that cannot access the public streams didn't mute your mics, and I'm not running that. So Jimmy, can you mute those microphones? Yeah, it's coming through loud and clear on my end. Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate that, bud. Anywhere below 2K, and this is headed to the downside. I would still give it some room to that mid, upper 1900, mid 1900 area. Fair game right now. When looking when looking at the weekly, we'll follow up with this on Friday. 2082 bucks is an aggressive pivot up there. Dropping the basis on the weekly is fine. It's fine all the way to about the midpoint of these two major support areas down below, where the lower first is coming in at 1950. So, it's still fair game down to that 1940 to 1928 30 area, but don't want to see it dropping that area. And specifically, you really don't want to see it dropping this weekly right here at around 1973 in the support zone at 1980 to 1965. But it could run that area. If it can close above it, it can go sideways and consolidate. You could see that the bands are lining up to begin a consolidation or compression phase. So that is something to keep in mind. I would keep a close eye on gold. All right, let's go look at traditional markets real quick here. We've got a big old pullback on Dow, and the sky is falling. Dixie's going up, and everybody's starting to say, it's over, it's over, it's over. And remember, I told you they were going to say that, didn't I? Yes. It is not even yet back to this this consolidation on a close, this little first expansion from the 22nd of January. If it does get there, that's going to be right around the lower first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. I would still be considering this fine. And that's coming in at 37,931 was the low here. Low was at basically 38. Cutting right across the breakout candle, above that high at 38, 109. So coming back to retest that area, no big deal. Is it turning, momentum to the downside on just about every time frame you can possibly think of? Yes, but recall that this can remain in the bullish control zone, even down into the midline. It's fine. Is it throwing a lot of bear divs? Absolutely, it is. Let's go ahead and look at bearish divergence, and you can see all the bear divs pointing to a daily reversal at minimum. Right now, midline is going to be 38,083. It did spike into that midline of RSI on the daily, so it's if it starts to get below there, currently the bearish control zone is down here. The edge of it is coming in at 37,261. Where is that relative to price? 37,261 is all the way down below the lower second standard deviation. So I'd be looking back into this consolidation. If that were to happen, I would not be looking at that as the most likely scenario currently. Could it get there? Yes. Lower second standard deviations at 37.5. And unless we see it shoot straight through that lower first, take out the top side of this consolidation structure at the upper $37,000 range, I would not even be looking at the lower second until we see, close at minimum below the basis that will open up this lower first at 38 again to the upper 37s. Then we come back to it, see where that lower second is if it begins to close below that lower first. If it can, however, keep this basis band around 38, 2 to 3, and then trade back towards that upper first at around 38, 630, 38, 650 area, I'd be looking right back to the current highs, somewhere just under 39 there in the 38,900 zone by that upper second standard deviation. And then come back to it because this is compressing. So we're getting a compression. We want to see compression to expansion and then gauge, the expansion to the upside being above the upper bands and then expansion to the downside being below the lower bands. So that would be what I'm looking for here on Dow. And we had the nice pullback to the basis band on NASDAQ as well. got a nice bounce off of it, right back to the upper first. We're getting compression of the Bollinger Bands. If it can trade and close candles back above the upper first, we're looking for the, well, all-time high at around that 18,041 to 18,050 being available probably up to around 18,100, 18,200 area by that upper third. Now that's provided that NASDAQ could close above the upper second, which is right there at just under, it's about 5 points under 18,000. So if it can trade back towards the highs, I would expect this to march on to 18,1 to 2, and then just kind of take it about 200 points chunks at a time. If it does remain below the upper first and start to push that basis again around 17,500, 17,550, that might start to open up, specifically if it drops around 17,500, might open up that lower first again around 17,2 to 3, currently coming in more towards that 17,3 area by the lower first to around the 17, 100 to 200 area by this well, it was a close, but then the open gapped right up. That is just above the lower second standard deviation, which is coming in at 1759, so 17,059 points. That would be kind of the line in the sand. If it starts to close below there, we're looking back to the prior all-time high at the upper 16 area in the 16.7 area. But I wouldn't necessarily be looking for a technical breakdown. Looks fine for right now. Yes, momentum's turned against it. Yes, bear divs everywhere on the daily. So pullbacks welcome, quite frankly, and expected. So the bearish control zone would be a far ways away, and that's right around the prior all-time high. We'll most likely update to that all-time high area in today's closure. Scale midline, as we do see RSI is trading below the bullish control zone. Scale midline is coming in at 17,300 and 30. And then the bullish control zone is, well, that's at 17,800. So really it's trading back above the upper first, right around the highs that we just talked about. Looks fine. For right now, I would expect some bull divs to populate, especially this is looking at confirming a swing low, even on a bear candle for today. We'll see what tomorrow brings, of course. Let's go ahead and just reference that weekly so that you can see this is fine. Absolutely fine above 17,300 from the weekly perspective. But if we did start to see the daily breaking below there, not getting bounces around that area, which, quite frankly, as it stands right now, I think it would. Looks good to keep continuing up. You can see that taking the highs at around that 1841, and we're looking at 18,100 to 200, and then 200 to 400. That upper second's coming in around 18,400 right now, and we'll update later this week, provided NASDAQ can stay above that upper first, which is looking fine right now. We'll see how it ends the week, of course, and follow up on Friday. SPY. Coming off that 500 points, this is fine as long as it's, for expansion purposes and volatility purposes. This is fine as long as it's trading and closing candles above, 486, and I would give it room even down to the 480 and the all-time high breakout around that 480 area. Otherwise, it would be back to the basis somewhere around 460, 470 initially, and then we come back to it. To the upside, as long as it's closing above around that 486 zone, that makes the upper second available, and that's coming in at 510 to 515, splitting the difference at 512. Daily, pulling back into higher low bearish structure on the swing because of the gap up and gap down. So the gap down initially, and then the gap back up to the upper first. If it is going to find this as resistance, keep an eye on the basis for tomorrow, which is around 490. If it drops that, then we're looking to the lower first, which is right around that 485, 486 area. That's what this is likely going to update. It's currently coming in at 484. So I'd be looking for this to head up to the 485, 486, where that weekly upper first is where we're likely to find the daily lower first. Of course, we've got the lower second right in the thick of things. just below the all-time high. They're coming in at 477 as it relates to the 479.98. It's basically 480 at the prior all-time high. This looks fine. If it can regain 497.18 at the upper first, the highs are in play again, just above 500 points to that 505 region. Upper seconds currently coming in at 503.76. So 505 would be very likely where that would update to if Bitcoin, SPY. This is not Bitcoin. This is SPY. If it started to trade back above its high here at 503.50. So we had that pretty well nailed. Basically split the difference between our target at 500 to 505. Again, take it 5 points at a time with SPY. You'll find that it lines up really well with its most recent volatility. 502 is the pivot there. Weekly looks fine. 499. I'd be looking for bullish resets. There is no in-trend bearish divergence as it stands right now. There was prior, but now it's got to create new in-trend bearish divergence on the weekly to really start looking for a longer-term turnaround. Otherwise, it's mostly pullbacks, unless it starts to lose, I would say on the weekly around 466 on a closing basis. Then it becomes a problem, but the weekly basis is around 460. I expect that to move up, provided it didn't just dump out all the holy hell here in the next, next day or two coming into Friday close. Other than that, looks good. Let's go ahead and head back to Bitcoin, which is pulling back a little bit in the lower term time frames. No big deal here. Getting a little bit of expansion to its, that's ever so slight expansion to its range low wicks here. We can turn on volume and get a good bias for what's going on here. All right, so it lost this candle. That's on the high, so we can always mark that. Just kind of give ourselves a little well-defined close open here on that higher volume high. Give us a zone up here. And so we got that guy there. Tap that liquidity quite a few times on that close open up there. And what do we have on the other side of that? The other high is coming in here that it's trying to battle here for higher volume. You notice that I'm not picking the lows because the lows aren't what's defining the range right now. It's the previous high volume high candles. So, and the current high candles. So this is where we start to really look left, so there's a high over here. There's to the bear wick that was defining this range. There was, came right back to that area, saw high volume. And it wasn't until it dumped off that we saw the higher volume on the lows that defined the low range on a close. So you had this guy down here defining that higher volume candle, defining that low. We had a shorter term high put in terms of high volume that just kept marching after it regained this high volume area over here. So kind of this is the shortcut way to do volume nodes and areas of demand. So in this case, strength or demand into this area on the highest volume candle that's defining this area is kind of what I'd be looking for, and that's around 50,996. So basically around 51,000. If it holds that area, then you've got a little bit of a liquid zone. You can see the volume has remained elevated between these two zones, between on the low end, that 51 basically, and on the high end of the close up here, we're looking at 51.8, which is the weekly. So obvious zone of interest there. Big volume off that 51.8 weekly. And again, that's this weekly right here. You turn on volume over here as well. And you can see that on the close, it closed underneath it and they tried to push it away from that weekly. And so far they've been successful, but still good all the way down to that 50,800 to 51. We haven't quite seen it swing this candle yet. So if it was, that would be a weekly zone around 50,800. Coming in slightly below $50,000 in the current close open for that area. Simple stuff, easy stuff, and very tradable stuff. Hourly, if anything, yeah, we want to see this basis slide into that low side area that we just pointed out. Currently coming in just under the weekly at 50,750. So it looks pretty good. Probably need a little nice bullish reset on momentum and then see what happens from there. There is no current in-trend bearish divergence. Is there historical? Yes, you could draw bearish divergence from all over the place there, but is it relevant? No. What about the 4-hour here? 4-hour, yes, there is bearish divergence forming quite a bit. But until this thing like changes trend, it's up and to the right. And that bearish divergence it's building there is not confirmed until we see a higher low taken out. And this is, as it stands right now, a beautiful uptrend, and it's going to remain so above 49,500 at the basis at minimum for the swing trend, and the lower first, which is all the way at 48,300, which, by the way, 48,240 is that March of 2022 swing, and that was this double bottom right there just above it and the 48,3 to 5 area. So 4-hour looks beautiful. This looks like continuation for now. And that is also being supported by BBWP. Yep. BBWP says, yep. Trading above the basis and upper first. BBWP confirms price volatility to the upside. So we got our directional there. And then the weekly at 50,800 is the actual pivot on the 4-hour for this next 4-hour close, which is coming in about 30 minutes. So you can always move that up to the 6-hour. Volatility is confirming 50,638 or 640 looks good. Just closed above the upper second, getting re-expansion, looks good. 8-hour volatility is expanding. We do want to see the moving average turn up with this. It is only slightly turned up now. That's going to come with any close here or higher today. Closing above 51.8, which is the weekly. Going to look very good. It is trading below there. That would be for momentum purposes. 12-hour, we're still in expansion. Top side's coming in at 52,600. Likely to update later today to around 53, which is that 2021 swing high prior to putting in that major low before the actual all-time high at 69K. I'd get in order. I mean, there's above here, there's only 58.8 to 61.4 in terms of major overhead resistances. There's lower term time frame resistances, but they are not in major areas on closes. They're primarily just swings. And I do not look at swings as quite as important because there's so many swings. A lot of the algos aren't going to take them into account. They're going to look for the closes, which is why the closes are far more important, in my opinion, when you're mapping out higher term time frame support and resistance areas of interest. All right. I think that's going to wrap it for today. I would suggest everyone, by the way, let me go over here. Public pool was down, but I'm going to make a few suggestions for those of you that are still hanging out here. Let's go ahead and turn on the music, and I'm going to have a little outside of TA conversation with you guys as it relates to Bitcoin. And we'll watch the chart while doing so. I'll also get the tunes on here. So we'll go back and we'll start with Cyberpunk. We'll do that song. We'll start up with that one because it's a little bit of a cyberpunk conversation. Get that background music rolling there. All right. If you are here and in chat, please go ahead and rep. I want to know who's actually listening and actively doing so, because what I'm going to talk about for a moment here is pretty important for those of you who are established and those of you who are new to Bitcoin. And I'm going to make a friendly suggestion for those of you that are here. This is not financial advice. In fact, it doesn't have anything to do with the charts or trading. Make yourself known. Go ahead and just say, yeah, I'm here, or whatever you want to say in the chats while I pull up a few things here. So give me just a second. Let me see. All right, so let's go over here. Here's what I want to look. I suggest that everyone who is listening, you get into pleb mining. Okay, I think it's very, 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 very important that you run your own node. It is not costly. You're not going to spend a lot if you're just doing pleb mining. I would look into a few different things. All right. I would look into these guys here. If you're going to pleb mine, they have a lot of people who have joined. Let me get the screen over here. This is public pool. Look, you can run Bitcoin node right on a spare laptop. But if you want a low power mining device, this network did go down here on public pool, but public pool is one of the more popular solo mining pools. And there's a few different devices, and a lot of these are open source devices. You can see that there's 563 BitAxe devices. These are very low cost mining devices. They're pleb miners. And you can go here and you can see all of the information regarding the BitAxe project, who the contributors are. Scott is one of the primary contributors that I follow. I know there's others, obviously. Benjamin Wilson and some of these, Stuart McKenzie being the others that have doxed themselves for good reason, so that you can verify what's going on here. These guys rip apart the big ant miners, take the chips out of them. They've created a board to fit that too, and then you have basically a nice ASIC to mine with. It's not mining to make money, it's mining to manage your own node. And I suggest that you do so. And then you can join a public pool. You don't have to get any of these miners, but you can go through and, like, Apollo miners. I so badly want one of the newer Apollo miners. I missed the first drop. The Apollo miner that was just released is amazing, and I need to get it. Anyway, there's only 10 Apollo miners. Really? There's only 10. But you're starting to get into the terahash count instead of gigahashes. Where you could potentially mine and make some good money if you are federating your miners or daisy chaining them if they're Apollos. But in any case, this is less to make money mining and more to manage, using a low power node to learn how to operate on a node, and then how to manage your device, manage your own wallet, manage your own UTXOs. So this is something that I suggest to all of you that you do. Nerd Miner's the other big popular one here. So we can pull up BitAxe project real quick. There is a barrier to entry on some of these, but a lot of them will make it very easy. Nerd Miner is very easy. BitAxe, there are people who, because it's an open source project, there are people who are, kind of doing this stuff. There's like the BitAxe project, where you can basically go to a PCB manufacturer and get all of these things and harvest your own chips. So it's all open source. But there is, Nerd Miners here as well. There is Decentraland. I think it's Decentraland is one of the people, they are a partner of theirs. I believe. Is that the right one? No. Man. I would have to go through, but basically you got to do your own research anyway. Nerd Miners are the other ones where they have kind of an all-in-one package that you can buy. And in this case, I believe this is their official site. I do have to double check before I put it up on the screen here. Nerd Miners. Yes, this is their official site. Just want to make sure, even scan it. There we go. So you can order these tiny little low power miners. They are to get you set up to basically understand how mining works, and then running your own node. And I don't think they have anything available right now, do they? Oh no, they do. A little Nerd Miner T. Display S3. So, these are super low power miners that you can pick up for very cheap. And, you can have the software pre-installed, and then you don't have to do anything. So they can set it up for you. So you go black, gray. You can include the USB-C cables, and it's $54. And this is, I believe, going to be charged in euros, if I remember correctly. But you can get additional information. Let me go look at Scott's page again, because the board partner, the manufacturer that he's using, is really cool, and they're very, very helpful. Let me double check where they are and their website. The main reason that I think you should know how to do this is public pool is ramping up. There's going to be other public pools. Public pools ramping up with Tor as well. So if you want to mine and don't want your IPs exposed, you can mine through Tor with public pool, and it's very, very good. And the nice thing is you don't like being a part of one pool, you can join another pool. But if you want a pool that's not going to dox you, you've got public pool there for you. And very, very handy knowing how to join a pool, how to manage your wallets and UTXOs, and how the Bitcoin mining process works in general. I highly suggest that you all understand this and get involved, and soon. Let me go here and just make sure that I got the other place that you can get boards. Damn it. Give me 1 second. My favorite mouse has a squeaky mouse wheel. Yes, I know. And I still refuse to change it. It is decentral.tech. There we go. All right. We're getting into the mining stuff. So you can get ASICs here of just about any kind that you like. I believe they are, the BitAxe miner. They have a few different versions. This is going to be a little bit more expensive than like a Nerd Miner. If you want to get started with it, though, this is, I believe, their newest. Here is the BitAxe Ultra, and this is using, it's using the BM1366 ASIC chips. So getting up to about 550 gigahashes on this tiny little thing. So in this case, they are, I think they're providing, comes fully assembled and equipped with heatsink fan, 5-volt socket. If you just get the BitAxe itself, there's no heatsink fan, there's no power plugins, you have to do all of that yourself. I think they provide the leads for the barrel jack. Yeah, I'm just looking at mine right now. Yes, they do provide the leads for the barrel jack, so you can just use a, I think it's a 15 watt power supply. I would use a little bit higher though, because it can pull, I believe, 20 to 25 watts. So it's super low power. But, you know, you're looking at just enough to get you rolling. You might be able to process some transactions. You're not going to be making, these are not to make money. This is for understanding and running your own node. Very cool. I suggest that you download Bitcoin Core and mess around with it before even doing any of that anyway. But these are some of the cooler things that you can do. And Decentral Tech, I don't have any affiliation with any of these guys. I just ordered the BitAxe products through them at one point. I thought they did a fantastic job. Yeah, the BitAxe DIY kit is what I got, and that was around, well, I must have got it on special because it was not 95. They also have used miners, so the S9, the Ant miners. They have the mini bits. These are going to be, I think, mini bit. Oh, they have a newer one. Yeah, this is the 1397. It's a 400 giga hash. This is, you know, got the little display on the sides, Wi-Fi enabled. It's all plug and play stuff, very cool stuff. But this is running a little bit more, about $205. I believe that's $205 as euros, 205 euros, if I'm not mistaken. Then they have the mini bit 1366. Now the Ultra, they have another one coming. Let me go look at Scott again. What is the other one? Yeah, they're pulling Antminer S21 ASICs that can do 620 giga hashes. Is that? Yeah, that's going to be the more efficient chip as well, power-wise. So they are going to have new versions. They're going to call it the BitAxe Supra. So that's on its way. I think they're going to start taking pre-orders for it now. They're just getting the PCBs in, and that is something to look into. The other one I would keep an eye on if you want to actually mine, and that is your goal. I would take a look at, well, this guy here, the guy who creates the Apollo miners. So the Apollo miners are, I have the old version. I have a couple of them. And they're basically making a stackable and this is from futurebit.io. This guy does a great job. He's on point when it comes to delivery, but he's created the Apollo miners. They do have the Apollo 2. You can sign up to get notifications when it's going to go live again, but you get a full node. It's basically a desktop computer that's running as a node. He's got his own Apollo OS rewritten from the ground up. The Apollo OS works really good. Now, I don't know what I'm running, but there's the Apollo 2 standard. This is a miner unit only, and it's backwards compatible with a Apollo full node, the original Apollo. It's basically like an upgrade, or you can daisy chain it with the Apollo full node. So I have the Apollo BTC. I've got a couple of these, and yeah, this is the full node. Actually, this has come down a little bit more. It's $700. I think it's come down a little more, but this is a full node. It's running about, I don't get the stated hash power because I run it a little bit lower operation speed, but this is coming in at around 2 to 3.8 on the upper end terahashes. You can actually do mining with these. The newer ones, I believe, are running 4 to 6 terahashes, if I'm not mistaken, and I've seen guys actually running these. and giving me metrics back on it. So full node is going to be, what is he estimating? I don't know. I thought it, yeah, 6 to 10 terahashes. So on the low end, running 4 to 6 terahashes on that. And the nice thing is he does have this broken out into its own thing here. They're about, for the 2 terabyte SSD, where you're looking at about $1,200. If you got the money to buy and you really want to get into mining, this guy's, I can vouch for it. Again, no affiliation, but then they have basically the hat. This is the USB add-on that's basically just plugging in more hash power, so you're getting 6 to 10 terahashes, and this is what I'm waiting for. I am on their mailing list to get in on the next drop, hopefully. Of course, you can change it to your local currencies as well and see what it is in your local currencies. I do, between these options, pleb mining, if you really want to go super pleb, you nerd mine. Run your own UTXOs and your own wallets and process your own stuff, right? Learn how to do that, learn how Bitcoin works, and then go from there. But yeah. Oh yeah, they sell out pretty fast as well. And then they kind of make them batch by batch. So they got 45 that they're selling of these. These are cool. I have one that's an earlier version of this. It's pretty awesome. Super economical. I mean, there's hardware wallets that cost more than these things. And you're literally controlling your own destiny with this stuff. So, all right, that's gonna probably do it for today. Let me jump back over to Bitcoin here and observe what's happening. Let me look in the streams. Yeah, no Landy rant. This is just straight up like, I'm strongly suggesting that you take control of your Bitcoin destiny. If you're into altcoins, great. You should still learn how to mine and run Bitcoin nodes. You should understand the process. Please, for your own, for what is going to be happening in the world, you should understand how this stuff works. Even if you have no idea, there's plenty of free resources out there that can teach you how to mine, or kind of turnkey software that you can play around with while you're doing research. Almost all of them come pre-installed or have an option to pre-install software. You can do it yourself. I suggest you learn all of it and join. I like public pool. There's plenty of other pools. You can join pools and you can leave pools. It's at your discretion. So far, I've joined the pleb miners to the public pool, and it's been doing fine. Nerd miners are pulling in. Total hash rate is not very much, 1.6 gigahash. But they're not meant for pushing hash power. It's for getting on there and running your own shit. And I suggest that you do it. Especially for those of you over in Europe. Decentral Tech for the BitAxe stuff. Decentral.tech. D-central.tech. All of their stuff is going to ship much faster to you than it does to me, of course. And I think the same for nerd miners, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't remember where they ship from. It almost seems like they ship from the US, but I don't remember if that's actually where they ship from. Yeah. So programming platform is, Arduino. Yeah, this is running a super low power processor. So basically, just to kind of give you an idea, good question. What is the nerd miner and how does it differ? Well, I mean, just read their introduction here. Nerd Miners S3. It's plug and play Bitcoin lottery miner, which gives you the chance to earn a full block reward every 10 minutes. It's literally you're playing the lottery. If you get in on a block that's been finalized by the pool, then there you go. Or even get in on a block that's being mined, you can get some money out of it. There have been people, I should say, that have, lottery mined this way, and actually made like a good amount of money just using a little nerd miner. It's pretty incredible. Basically, a sleek device, compact device that effortlessly mines you Bitcoin through a lottery-like system, the Nerd Miner T. Display S3, which is, that's it. Just call it the Nerd Miner TS3 and be done with it. Is the epitome of simplicity and efficiency in the world of Bitcoin mining with just a USB-C power cable. And a touch of luck, you can embark on your Bitcoin mining journey designed specifically for solo miners. Showcases true power when operated individually, as its hash might not be significant enough to contribute to a mining pool. Although you can see what they're doing, they're aggregating this into the public pool, and it's actually pushing a little bit. But it is a lottery miner. It's more for fun, more for learning. However, the advantages of solo mining become apparent when you discover that if you manage to find a block, the entire block reward transaction fees are yours to keep alone. There have been people who have mined these, and it's going to get more difficult to do this over time. So you're more looking at understanding how Bitcoin works with one of these. Operating a mere 1 watt of power, approximately $2 per year, and it can it achieves this is not kilowatt hour, this is kilohash. 78 kilohashes is nothing straight out of the box, but it is enough to get you in to that lottery because you'll be in on every block, and it could potentially fall to you as the confirmation signer. All right, so this is something that's really cool, and is something that is fairly low cost, and it's basically no cost to implement. And you can understand how to set up your own wallets and understand how mining works, and it's better than nothing. I do suggest that at some point you install Bitcoin's full core on something, even if it's just a laptop, so you understand how it works and what's going on, and you can observe the process, even if you're not really contributing hash power, but at least running your own full node in some manner. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say on that. It's literally, this is the simplest way to get in, and these guys do a really good job. I might even pick one up to give to a friend. I'm not going to do it on stream, obviously, but or maybe even one for me as just because I don't have one of the newer ones, and I love this kind of stuff. It's pretty awesome. But learn this stuff, because if ever the censorship hammer falls, it's not going to be directly on the network. It will be everything surrounding the network, giving you limited rails and limited ways of moving. But utilizing Bitcoin and understanding Bitcoin from a network and node level will help you understand how you can circumvent those systems, because those systems are coming. They may already be here. All right, that's going to do it for me today. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. I'm going to leave the stream up for a little bit here. We'll run till 12:15 my time. For those of you that want to play catch up with the stream and or chart some of the things that we had talked about earlier regarding Bitcoin or other charts like Dixie Gold or the traditional market charts. So if you would like to do that, you're more than welcome to, with some beats for about the next 15 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and get that rolling. And let's go ahead and bid you adieu. You have a wonderful one again. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And check out the mining side of things. I'm encouraging you that even if you just use an old laptop, please go and install Bitcoin Core and start understanding how this stuff works. You're going to need it. All right. With all that said, I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow in a recorded format and then live again on Friday. Take care of yourselves. Landy out.